will be about that close. We better do it. Let's do it right now. Let's do it right now.
Now, live from Network Election Headquarters at KZSU Radio on the campus of Stanford University.
Yeah, 1947 is when the station first started broadcasting. It wasn't on the air at the time. It broadcast through what's called carrier current, which meant if you plugged your radio into the electrical socket to run, everybody had a radio in those early days, and you plugged it into the wall, your AM radio you could tune to KZSU because it was radiated to the electrical wires and then would come through your radio that way.
Finally, Stanford got an FM radio license at 90.1 and began to broadcast so you could hear it all over the Bay Area, actually. You could hear it clear up to San Francisco, San Jose. I guess you'd hit the hills and it would pretty soon die out. But it was a powerful signal all over the Bay Area. And we would go to events and news conferences with our little tape recorders.
Nixon gives his speech inside, that all worked fine, and he goes outside, and I'm down in the basement of Memod, and I hear nothing's coming out of the speakers. So I said, oh my God, somebody turned down the volume. So I ran up the backstage, ran up the aisle, ran up behind Nixon, ran over to the ticket window, and turned up the volume so his speech would come out.
In, I think it was probably summer 64, but it might have been summer 65, we had something we called Project South. And we had several of our news people went down to the South where civil rights marches were occurring and voter registration drives, and interviewed people, mostly people in the civil rights movement, but I guess they also interviewed local authorities and folks like that. And of course it was a risky thing to do because white kids from the North coming down there, they got credibility with the civil rights movement, but of course any credibility with the civil rights movement makes you suspect to the white racists.
Contemporary civil rights movement is cleansing the soul of America. While it is a movement to establish laws, rights, and opportunities, it is more than that. It is a movement to square our character with the moral law of the universe.
We did Gorby remotely, and we did Obama once remotely and once from there. And we've also broadcast the Dalai Lama when he spoke here. Because to me, the value of a Stanford radio station is covering Stanford.
And I had a program on KZSU all 4 years. And the last year, it was called Mosaic. And I interviewed people who came to campus from far and near. And I took my portable tape recorder to San Francisco, and I interviewed people there in Chinatown and all around social issues and all of that. So the KZSU experience was really a big highlight for me.
This is David Fisher, sports director at KZSU, the radio home of Stanford baseball. We follow the Cardinal throughout.
I did sports and news. On the sports side, we would have a few reporters who would give updates on the different teams and what they were doing. But then the broadcasts themselves, there were live broadcasts of Stanford football, women's basketball, men's basketball, and baseball.
KZSU people and engineering folks were pretty free-spirited in those days. And so there were a lot of things going on, and we pretty much at that time, the KZSU people had free run of all of Memorial Auditorium.
There was a subculture at KZSU, which were people who enjoyed each other's company, some technical, some not. It drew a group of people who were interested in not going to school, basically. Not attending classes. Because at KZSU, if you wandered down there at 3 a.m, there would probably be a group of 4 or 5 people playing an endless game of Monopoly.
So we would have our turntables in there, we would have our microphones, you have headphones because when you turn your microphone on, the speakers go off so that you don't get feedback. In the 1970s, you might have a lava lamp over in the corner, you might decide to turn the lights way down, there might be other activities that you're doing in there as well as broadcasting, or you might not. And then you just sit in a chair and relax and put your music on and cue your songs up and do your show.
KZSU took itself very seriously in the sense that it wanted to be a leader culturally in music programming, in offering a voice to segments of the student population that maybe didn't have a big voice. There was programs for women students, for Black students, for gay students, and then, of course, the news department. And we felt, we all took our responsibility as a radio station seriously. And as a result, we attracted volunteers from the community who also wanted to be part of this community resource.